You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den with Christine. What you don't know that's killing your chance to find love. Ladies, welcome into the Dating Den. If you have been around our campus, then this person is famous. But if you haven't, you're going to see that she should be famous because she's brilliant and she is a dating with dignity success story in her own right. And our VP of Client Success, Christine Kriner. I can't believe it's been 4 years since you came on the podcast when we were a little baby, brand new podcast, and you vulnerably put yourself out there and said, coach me.
I know. It was, oh my gosh. I was listening to the podcast today. It was number 3 on our list, and I was only almost 46, and I just turned 50. And I have to say, it was a little painful to listen to.
What was painful about it?
Because I didn't recognize that person that I was before. I'm like, wow, wow, I've come so far. Actually, that's what I was thinking. I've come so far, and it actually just tapped into some of the pain that I felt at that time. So it was a little hard to listen to.
To your own pain. Well, that's what I want to talk about today. And so I really appreciate you being here and being vulnerable again. Is that, and it's that, you know, we've had other women come into our company and create success in this part of their life just by osmosis. I think for you, not only was it, you know, initially osmosis, but you actually sort of started, you know, really doing the work. So for those of you who did not listen to episode 3, if you could just sort of, even though it's really hard to remember, what was it like? What did you think about men and dating? And I just want to preface, by the way, ladies, and you can explain before you start, like, you have been in personal development like your whole career. You've even been in the dating industry. Can you just sort of like set that up? Because I think it makes the pain worse when you're supposed to know how to do stuff.
Yes. So, yes, as you said, I've worked in personal development for many, many years, literally almost 20 years. It's been a while. And in the dating space. And I always worked in programs, and I never actually would do the programs. So I wasn't listening to, I wasn't really listening to the advice, and I wasn't seeing like breakthroughs and these amazing outcomes. So when I started working on your programs, I really listened to the coaching and all the outcomes that the ladies were getting, and just these amazing breakthroughs and big awarenesses. And I started applying it to my life, and it really, it changed me, honestly. It changed me. And I tell ladies and clients all the time that I would not be in an amazing relationship that I am in now. And, it actually saved me, honestly, from myself, I would say. The podcast where I was when we did the first podcast, I wasn't really aware of what was going on, really. And I know that you did a deep dive on it with me. I was dating, I was divorced, I was dating, I was picking the wrong men. So I was always attracted to the bad boys. And it was interesting as we talked about it and we went on a deeper level. I always thought, I'm attracted to the handsome guy, who is hard to get. And is what you uncovered for me was really that I was saying I can't trust men. It was based on my, maybe my history with my parents. They divorced. My father told me when I was young that we're human and humans aren't monogamous, so don't expect that to happen. And my mom was caretaking for my stepfather, so I got very independent and I made up the story in my mind. And what you did is you uncovered the fact that I was making up a story, and it wasn't that I didn't trust men. I really didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my own judgment or the fact that I could make a smart decision when it came to men. So I was really not trusting myself, which was really interesting. I was collecting evidence that the men were always, that the men were wrong. So it was interesting.
And that's what's so interesting about it is that, and this is so, I think, relevant for a lot of the ladies who listen to the show. Like, you're like immersed in information. Like, you have access to all this information. And yet you're not choosing to do it, right? You're unconsciously choosing pain because you think maybe that's just the way it is. Like, what do you think set you up to not ever really, because we always talk on our campus about like, doing, right? And being in action of your vision, not just like information without action is entertainment. What do you think set you up to not be doing anything differently?
That's a great question. I think underneath, I thought, oh, it can work for other people, but it won't work for me. Which, I had that belief that it wouldn't, maybe it wouldn't work for me. And
do you think that you were too cool for school?
Maybe too cool for school, or, I had a wall up, right? I still had a wall up. I didn't want to get vulnerable. I didn't want to look at myself as part of the problem.
Go ahead.
Look at it. I didn't want to come to grips with I could be part of the problem.
And I think that's really, really relevant. It's relevant because, and I say too cool for school. What I mean by that is I think that, you can listen to this show, like no one will know you're listening to it, right? Like you can like quietly think maybe I have this problem. We see that even like, we have this LinkedIn presence, right? And it's like, well, nobody wants to talk on LinkedIn about like, what's not working in your life because you have to be cool because, your colleagues and your boss are there, right? And we're also doing that in social media, right? We're like too cool for school. And we have this situation and that pain gets so familiar. And it's almost like we're set up, right, to have every reason not to look at our stuff and blame and avoid. So what was that for you, Christine, that like was your moment where you decided to be courageous and like shine the flashlight inward?
I think, well, what we were talking about on the podcast last time, and also just seeing, I get to witness, the coaching and ladies being incredibly vulnerable. And it just made me aware that, and every time I hear something, or I hear things over and over again, I would think about it and how it applied to me. And I just got these huge awarenesses out of it. And I realized, like you said, I wasn't trusting myself. I just realized that really resonated with me. I wasn't trusting myself. I wasn't trusting myself in relationship. I wasn't being vulnerable. I even looked at my marriage, and I think I said on the last podcast, we were together and we basically just said, we're getting divorced. And I was like, okay, that's good. We're getting divorced. And I realized I never even let myself be vulnerable and create connection with men. So I was trying to be the cool girl, and I always shut off my feelings. I wasn't connecting, really to men. And the other thing that I realized, we spoke about my dad and, what he would say. I even took it one step deeper, and I realized I tend to be an overgiver in every aspect of my life. At the time, I'm not really that now, but it came from a place of realizing that I had this feeling that I was not enough. So I was instead of just being me and myself and my authentic self in life and in relationship, I was giving because I never thought that it was just enough to be me. And somebody wouldn't just like me to be, because I was me. So I think I said in the last podcast, I would offer men, to make men dinner, and I would buy concert tickets, and I would do all this stuff because I had this underlying thought that I was not enough. So the two, I kept digging into the fact that I didn't trust myself and the thought that I am not enough. And honestly, I feel like you have to keep digging till you get to the core of what that is and really change that to have like a good relationship.
And I think one thing that's really important too is that, how we always say how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So when you look back, and I'm saying this because I think a lot of ladies will say, oh no, I have everything, like I don't have this issue. But then when we get to work with ladies on a really in-depth level, we sort of see like how this is showing up in different parts of your life. So were you over giving? Were you over functioning for other people, whether it was your ex-husband, your kid at work? Like how else was it showing up?
Oh, yes. In every aspect of my life, with my friends, it would be, oh, we're having a party. And I would just realize like, oh, I offered to overdo. I offered to do, make 3 dishes. And, and with my kid, it's like, we all know probably that overgiving is not good, because we end up doing too much for them. And so I was overgiving, with my child and with my friends and at work, and I was depleting myself. And I realized it wasn't really it wasn't moving me in the right direction. So it was like I was kind of banging my head against the wall. And I had to really dig deep and figure this out, figure like out why I was doing this. And when I got to the root of it, then I realized that I had to change it. And one of the things that you talk about is feminine communication. Mm-hmm. And I realized I can stop doing these things. I can communicate in a feminine way, expressing my needs and be vulnerable. And it gets me much further than overgiving.
Well, yeah, because what we see is that if you believe that you're not enough and you can't trust yourself, and some people, we always talk about when you get triggered, you're either going to move away from, right, like pull away or put a guard up, but some of you will move toward, which is the like, do you like me now? Do you like me now? Do you like me now? Mm-hmm. And it's a never ending cycle, because no matter what, if you don't feel that you're enough, then you're always sort of left wondering like, well, was that enough? And it's a hole that can't get filled. So once you were able to learn that you were enough, what were some of the things that you started to do differently? Well, let me ask you this. What was the hardest thing? If you remember, like one of the first times you set a boundary, what was that, and what did that mean for you, and what did it teach you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, there were a lot of boundaries that I set, but I would say in my relationship, so I'm in a relationship now, I would say, like in the beginning, I actually it was a little bit of a crumb situation because I was overgiving, and then what happened was I was giving, and he was like, "Oh, this is great," and we were together, I'd say, in a previous iteration than in our relationship now. But it wasn't until I started setting boundaries where he actually stopped and stood up, and the whole energy shift in our relationship changed. And he responded well to that. Just small things like I remember one afternoon we were with a group of people, and then I wanted to go to lunch, with him alone, and he was planning on the whole group going, and I just kind of pulled him aside and I said I really wanted to go to, I want to go to lunch, just the two of us. And we had this issue previously, like with this, oh, we're hanging out with a bunch of people. And I kind of set a boundary, and I said, I really want to spend, in a feminine way, I said, I really want to spend some time with you alone. And I would prefer that we go to lunch alone. And he was like, oh, okay. So I spoke my needs. I said it in a, I guess in a nice way, and he made it happen. And that was kind of like, from there on, I started setting boundaries and really expressing what I wanted. And that changed like the whole dynamic of our relationship.
And you didn't die.
I didn't die. When I, that's funny that you say that, because when I get into really stressful situations, I tell myself, I'm not going to die. I do tell myself that.
Well, because it feels like when you're doing a move like that, right? It's not comfortable. We talk about, you have to be uncomfortable to get to the vision of the life that you want. Like, there is no express bus from like, oh, I'm in pain to, oh, suddenly it's not like that movie Click, where you just, freaking Adam Sandler, where you just like, press the remote button. You're like, look, Christine like has this guy, and now he reads her mind and he just does whatever she wants. You have to make the bold, courageous move. And I think what I want to tell people is it does feel sometimes like you're gonna like die, like that feeling in your body. And it feels uncomfortable. Or I know we hear this a lot too, like someone will make a bold move like that, and then like a few days later, there's like a residual, like, did I do the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have that happen?
Oh, yes. And honestly, that brings up another thing, is not slipping into old tendencies, right? Things that you used to do. So, yeah. So I have thought that, but I think that less and less, I guess now, the more I'm learning and the more work that I'm doing on myself is, I get, I'm kind of, I question myself less.
Well, and that, I mean, like, duh, right? Because if you start with, and I'm saying duh to all of you who are listening, because if you come in with the problem, like Christine said, of like, at the core, I just don't trust myself. And then suddenly you're like, oh, now I don't have doubt on my decisions, and I don't have self-doubt on my preferences and getting my needs met and stating what I want to say, then it's a reflection of that internal bucket being filled of self-worth and I am enough. So I think it's not an accident that when you trust yourself more, then you go have less self-doubt or less regret or less remorse.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that I want to say about, like giving less or having to step into that, giving. So people like me, or, maybe my boyfriend likes me more, is when I stopped over giving, I think it also gave other people the space to step in and give.
Say more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. So I did stop, with my boyfriend, I stopped giving, and he stepped in and really started, doing more. And some really interesting shifts happened, I would say. I used to always cook, He doesn't really like to cook. I tell the story to some of our clients. He's the worst cook. he makes pork chops. I think pork chops and literally, Marni, rice-a-roni. And I'm a foodie, so I would always step in and I would cook. And then I stopped. I kind of sat back, and he would say, "Oh, come over. I would love to make you dinner." And he would actually try new things, and he would get so excited, and it would actually be really good. And I would be able to, give him great positive feedback. And it let him step in and kind of, take the lead a little bit. Another good example, I would say, of feminine communication. This just happened recently. It was a way I asked him to come over and do things at my house for me. I would say at the moment, like I said, "Oh, that's a boyfriend thing to do." Kind of half kidding,
right?
Not kidding. And he was like, I don't really buy into that's a boyfriend thing to do. And then, fast forward like a few weeks, I got a Peloton bike, and I'm not mechanical whatsoever. And I didn't, find somebody to put it together. And he was talking about, "Oh, you seem really busy. You're busy at work and you have a lot of things going on." And I said, "Yeah, I'm really, really busy." And, and I said, "What would be really helpful for me, which I would totally appreciate?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Would you please come over and help me put together my Peloton bike?" And he was like, "Of course." And he literally bought a little tool set so I could have it at my house. And he came over and he put it together. But it was just how I said it, right? Like that difference in how we reacted. Like,
that's huge. That's a big shift, right? It's like a little sarcastic before and a little like roll, like you should do this for me. And then he was like not responsive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say, like, the more and more I'm listening, I'm listening to you and our master coaches, coaching ladies, I apply it to my life. And so these are the things, like the little shifts that I learned that are really, changing the dynamic in my relationship or, changing dynamics in my life with other people.
And and so you have your own experience, and then you get to witness, literally hundreds of women. Well, thousands, really, if you think about all the women that have come to ignite your life and every class and program, and even in our free me and group on Facebook. If you would say, like, if I only knew then what I know now, like, is there a theme that, like, because you see the befores and afters of so many women, what are some of the themes of what, like, people who are listening right now, they're like in their own world, they're listening to this podcast, they're like, in their pain or avoiding their pain. What is it that they don't know?
That's a really good question. Sometimes if people say, right, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I would say, just being aware and, being aware. I wish I would have known the things that I know now then. But also, right, we teach energetics and being in high levels of energy. So I also look at the things that I've gone through in my life as like a learning experience. But I feel like I could have probably saved myself a lot of pain because I would say I told my boyfriend this and we were laughing. I said, this is the first adult relationship I've been in my life. And I'm 50.
Yeah.
Which is, so I'm like, wow, if I could have known these things back when I was dating, the things that I know now, looking at men, looking at values versus, oh, is he hot?
Right.
Does he have a six pack or, does he have a master's degree or does he make a lot of money? Like, just the things. If I knew those things back then, I probably would have saved myself a lot of pain. But it wasn't until I've been going through this process and doing doing the work that I realized what I really want and what's really going to make me happy for the rest of my life. It's like focusing on I think, the really important things.
I freaking love that. I just made like all these little like rainbow and butterfly faces, and you can't see that right now, but I'm like, oh,
your
Kristen.
emoji sticks. I
am. I'm holding up my heart emoji stick. I want to ask you one last thing because I think I want to circle back because it's a really, really important connection. You said at the beginning, like, I was in personal development for 20 years and I never thought something would work for me. And you hold that up to, I don't trust myself. Right. And I think that so many people are caught in that like freaking hurricane, right? Like, if I really believe that nothing's going to work for me, it's because I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to do the work. I don't trust myself that I'm enough for it to work. I don't trust that it can work because I don't deserve it. That one limiting belief, I don't think it can work for me, coupled with that gremlin message of like, I'm not enough, therefore I can't trust myself. It's a dream killer. Mm-hmm. When you think about like what you would say to all those women that are like, oh my God, that's me.
I would say, don't live in fear. Like, you can do it. And if you just trust the process, and you do the work, it pays off. It pays off so much. And, it's almost like living in this bigger vision. And we all want to do that, right? Of what can be, like what's possible. I mean, that's why I say when I listened to that podcast, it was painful because I couldn't even believe that I was in that position. I was literally at the lowest point ever of my life and from my breakup. And now I'm kind of looking back like, wow, I can't believe I was even there. It doesn't even seem real because what I have now is like co-creating this amazing experience with another human being. But it's like my perspective, right? It's also doing the work and, it's not perfect. I don't think anything is
Nothing is perfect. Yeah, I don't think
but it's a constant learning, right? Like
it's assess and adjust.
And we talk about it. And, even now, sometimes I catch myself making up a little story in my head and I just get vulnerable and I express how I feel. And he's like, oh, that's not it at all.
You're so wrong. Not only are you making up a story, you're a really bad screenwriter. It's a bad story. It's not even close.
Yeah. And so yeah, at least now we've kind of got to the point, right? I kind of get triggered. I don't say anything because I'm like, I think, let me think about where that's coming from. And then I do say something, I get vulnerable, I say something, and it's like nothing. So like something in my head where I'm like, oh my God, we're going to break up. It's a horrible thing. It's like, I stop, I think, because I know I'm like, it's coming maybe from my past, my past self or my little or, these wounds from my childhood. And then it becomes nothing. And it's like, we're still together and it was nothing.
That's so poignant. And when we talk about this idea of, being the Institute of Living Courageously, it's really about living courageously is living a life where you feel like that you can take a risk because you trust that process and you're going to fail, but you're going to fail forward because you're going to learn something every time. And I always want to say to people, and I think this was where you were, like, you don't need to practice learning the same stuff that you've been learning over and over again, right? Which just reinforces, I don't trust myself. I can't make good decisions. We get caught in that little storm. And so when you take an action and make a pattern interrupt, and do that one thing differently, like ask for help or believe in yourself or take a new risk, that is when you can create a life really beyond what you can imagine. And that's, I think, my hope for people who listen to this show is that what's out there for you is beyond, you can't literally imagine it. Your brain is wired right now in a way where you can't literally imagine it. You're living in a freaking box.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And now, like, what shape is your life now?
I giggle when I say it. See, I used to laugh when I got nervous. Now I giggle because I'm in like, it's great. It's great. And I look at everything as like a learning experience. And it's so funny. Like, I never thought in a million years that a Friday night of having a blast with my boyfriend is us sitting on the couch and just talking. I'm like, oh, we're not traveling or doing this or doing that. It's like, I never thought in a million years I could be like having these open, vulnerable, connected conversations. It's amazing.
Yay! I'm so happy for you. You're amazing. I really appreciate you being vulnerable and paying it forward so many times every day in your job. And that freaking episode number 3, so many other women have stepped forward to be coached since you put yourself out there, and you are just so part of the ripple effect and part of the example and the model you're living for listeners and for our clients. So I just really appreciate you being so generous and vulnerable here on the Dating Den.
Thank you. I love you, Marni.
I love you too, Christine. I love you too, ladies. But you know what? Do it with some damn dignity, whatever it is you're doing today. All right. We'll see you next time on the Dating Den. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.